What would you like to see Scarlet Witch do next? Or where would you like to see her go?
My favorite is House of M, but that would never happen. But
never say never in this.
I mean, if she could have 2 fake babies and everyone tell her that they don't really exist, and then her just go nuts, that would be unbelievable. But I don't think they're gonna do that.
Silly Lizzie, comics are for fans, and Feige does what he wants. It's time to strap on and jump on into the 80s in the newest episode of WandaVision. Strap on. This is your one and only spoiler warning. If you are not caught up on WandaVision to at least episode 5, then turn back now. Go watch those first and then come back so we can freely discuss episode 5 and everything in between. Go! My name is Brandon, and today I want to rip apart episode 5 of WandaVision. Kind of like how Sword was ripping apart Vision in that lab. I got my eyes on you, Hayward. Episode 5 of WandaVision moves us up to the 80s in Wanda's reality, paying homage to classic sitcoms like Full House and, more accurately, Family Ties, especially with that sitcom opening theme. The song is a rendition of Without Us by Denise Williams and Johnny Mathis. Pretty lazy one at that. This might be a hint toward Wanda losing control of her reality, one that she might not have built by herself in the first place.
I don't know how any of this started in the first place.
You mean you don't? I suppose all of this must have been possibly triggered by Wanda's grief. I mean, for one, this week's commercial for Lagos paper towels just confirms that Wanda's past is always coming back to haunt her, and she's constantly beating herself up for her mistakes.
Lagos, for when you make a mess, you didn't mean to.
And running from all of that turmoil to the events of Infinity War, watching her love die twice, and then returning from the blip, once holding Vision's lifeless body in her arms, to probably holding nothing at all, and then being thrown into battle with somebody that shares the same face as the person responsible. I mean, how does even someone begin to process something like that? I suppose by breaking into a government facility and stealing back his body. But is it stealing if you're stealing from thieves? What is Sword doing with Vision's body in the first place? If his last wishes were to not be used as a weapon, and Sword is the Department of Sentient Weapon Observation, maybe creation.
We focused on robotics, nanotech, AI, sentient weapons, like it says on the door.
It also says observation and response on that door, not creation.
Were they ignoring Vision's last wish first? And Wanda's just simply rescuing him. It's just hard to believe that Wanda's just full-on villain mode now. Though it's hard to ignore the signs.
This will be your only warning.
I love that her accent comes back, by the way. But also, don't go into a queen bee's nest unless you want to get stung. If Wanda isn't the villain, she at least is the current antagonist. But I still have my suspicions. And no matter how powerful she might be, her abilities seem to have limits. Her control over her twins is basically non-existent, as it seems they decide what they do and when they age. Maybe they're an extension of her chaos magic, a seemingly random energy, thus giving them power and a mind of their own. It also seems like they were able to create things from nothing as well. I mean, where did that dog come from?
How about Sparky?
Sparky! Sparky is Vision's dog in the comics. He isn't green like he is in the comics, but it's still a fun little nod to the Tom King run of the Vision. I still think these kids are being puppeted by a more sinister force. I'm gonna keep calling it until it isn't, because these kids are giving me some serious Shining vibes.
Come play with us, Daddy.
But jumping back again to talk about Sword, Hayward does seem like he's up to some shit. He knew about Wanda breaking into Sword before sending Monica to New Jersey. He knew exactly what he was sending her into. Why would he risk his agent like that? Unless he knew that Monica could handle it, being able to absorb that energy already. She did absorb the energy from the X-ray, so she either already has the photon powers, or being blasted through the barriers of Westview gave her her powers. Either way,
Hayward's a terrorists.
There's also this interaction between Agent Wu and Hayward talking about Wanda's past during the briefing. It's brought up if Wanda has a superhero nickname, poking fun at the aliases in the MCU, yes, but also maybe setting up Wanda actually officially becoming the Scarlet Witch. It's kind of like her origin story.
You're late.
And talk about power. She was able to turn all of those agents' minds with a flick of her wrist. And by the looks of it, strengthening her hex barrier.
Wanda is rewriting reality.
Wanda is about to become the strongest person on the planet, if she isn't already, and definitely the strongest Avenger.
What?
Monica does point out that Wanda could have taken Thanos herself if he didn't rain fire. How do they even know that? It's not like there was a cameraman running around on the ground recording the entire event. Maybe Wanda broadcast that too before turning her attention toward a more nostalgic viewing pleasure. But speaking of the Battle of Earth, what is Monica's beef with Captain Marvel?
Well, I'd argue that Captain Marvel came close.
Her powers came from an Infinity Stone too, right?
We are not talking about her.
The last time we saw Monica, she was head over heels for Carol. I guess she could be pissed if she wasn't around when Maria was battling cancer. Or it's alluding to an event that we might see in Captain Marvel 2.
By now you should start getting a sense of the interconnectedness.
But Monica wants to go back into the Hex? Talking about building a vehicle capable of breaching the barrier and withstanding photon energy?
Comprised of lead for photons.
Photon. But she doesn't want to do it herself, and instead says she's going to reach out to a neurospace engineer that she knows will be up to the job. What engineers do we know in the Marvel Universe that could show up? We know Iron Man is dead, so he's out. What about Hank Pym? I don't think that's very likely, considering we haven't seen them meet. And something tells me this is a prime opportunity to introduce somebody new to the MCU. I do know a couple of space engineers that might be up to the task. 4 to be exact. Or 5 if you count their ex-partner Victor Von Doom. But in all honesty, my prediction is leaning toward introducing Dr. Henry Hank McCoy, better known as Beast from the X-Men. In the comics, Beast does join his girlfriend Abigail Brandt in working for SWORD, so it's not crazy to think that he might show up, especially if the show wants to stick to the mutant and X-Men family surrounding Wanda's backstory.
It's complicated. Hey, it's complicated,
It
right?
is.
It's complicated.
Jumping back to the WandaVerse. Stop that. Jumping back into the 80s. Okay, fine. Getting back into Westview. We have to talk about Vision. It seems like he's waking up. But is this the first time? It seems like every time Vision starts to come to, Wanda rolls credits and redresses the set. My heart actually breaks for Vision in this episode. He's literally trapped.
Before what? I can't remember my life before Westview. I don't know who I am. I'm scared.
But this isn't the Vision that we once knew. That Vision, unfortunately, is dead. So what Wanda thinks what she has is real, it's actually really not. And she, like us, need to move on. But before this, Vision starts doing some digging of his own. At the office, on a Saturday,
Barf.
Vision uses them new 80s computers to intercept a message sent by SWORD in regards to the briefing on the Maximoff anomaly. He then wakes up Norm, or Ablash Tandon, from his psychosis, and he starts to panic.
Please help me. How long has it been? You have to stop her.
Stop who?
She's in my head.
How much of this is SWORD able to see? If Wanda or somebody else is editing the broadcast, do they see Vision's office encounter? Do they see Viz and Wanda's argument later? And who won't let him out? Wanda? Or somebody else? Agnes? I'm going to keep on this Agatha Harkness train a little while longer. I mean, why is she not fazed by any of this weirdness? The dog? Wanda's powers? The kids aging rapidly? She's definitely up to something. And then there's that damn pendant. When she comes in to help with the twins at the beginning of the episode, she looks to Wanda for some sort of direction. Is Wanda in full control? She claims that she's not, so Agnes is definitely putting on a show to make it seem like Wanda is the executive producer instead of just the on-set director like she might be.
Do you want me to take that again?
And when Sparky sadly winds up dead, Agnes is the one to break the news. And we get quite a depressing scene of Wanda trying to explain to her kids why she can't bring back the dead.
Hypocrite!
But Agnes starts to wonder, can she? Did Agnes kill that dog to test the limits of Wanda's powers? To see if she really can resurrect the dead? With Pietro on Wanda's mind, since Monica brought up Ultron and the kids asking about her family, we may see what kind of limits her powers have, with the ability to unintentionally will things into existence. But like Wanda said, dead is dead, or at least that's what she believes, and then the doorbell rings.
I didn't do that.
Wanda says it wasn't her doing, so somebody sent her a gift. And that gift is Pietro. Who is that? That's not Pietro. Ah, but it is. Just not your Pietro.
She recast Pietro?
This, my friends, is Evan Peters as Peter Maximoff, Quicksilver, from the Fox X-Men movies. Turns out I was wrong about my prediction for Evan Peters not coming back as Quicksilver. But did Wanda do that?
Did I do that?
My guess is no. Somebody else did. Maybe Agnes. Maybe Dottie, who I'm speculating is Clea. Maybe one of them brought him back. But instead of this universe's Pietro, who is dead, they stole one from an alternate universe. You should have done your research, girls. These two don't even look the same.
You look exactly alike. One's blue!
If this is our first step into the multiverse of madness, then who else might show up? Elizabeth Olsen did confirm recently that there will be a cameo in the show, to the level of the cameo we saw in the Season 2 finale of The Mandalorian. Either Lizzie's given Evan Peters more credit than he deserves, or we should be expecting somebody else to show up soon. Along with Paul Bettany talking about working with a well-respected actor in this show, and assuming they're talking about the same person, I'm starting to think that this person might be another returning actor from the Fox X-Men universe. Maybe Patrick Stewart as Charles Xavier, who claims to have had meetings with Kevin Feige relatively recently. Or it could be Ian McKellen as Magneto, who in the comics is Wanda's father. If it isn't already, this show is about to get crazy.
You want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
If you liked hearing me talk about WandaVision and breaking down episode 5, be sure to subscribe. I'll be reviewing every episode coming up, hopefully the day that they're released. I'm also working on another video called Quarantine. Tomato, tomato. But you can expect that this weekend or sometime next week. Also, follow me on Twitter. Come talk to me over there about WandaVision. Or comment below what you thought about the episode. I look forward to watching this mystery unravel in some unpredicted ways, and for a very Marvel-stacked year on Disney+. But, until next week, stay frosty.
Who's a popsicle?
I regret nothing. Goodbye!
Thanks a lot. Bye.